Hi everyone, welcome to another Seiya Legend of Justice video. Now in today's video, I'm going to talk about a topic which I think is going to be useful for both the Japanese player as well as the global overseas players as well. And the topic I'm going to talk about today is going to be the evolution of the various different teams and what are the best teams in Seiya Legend of Justice. And I think this is going to be super useful for pretty much all the players out there because if you're on the Japanese server, what I'm going to essentially tell you is going to be the best team to use as new character getting introduced. And remember, this is a team game. It's a team of 5 versus a team of 5. So just because you know a character is really good doesn't mean you know how to use it. And at the same time, there are 4 other characters you need to actually support the character that is actually really strong, right? So if I actually tell you in advance in the future what are going to be the best teams, then you can stop your preparation for those teams now. Maybe concentrate on the teams or on the characters in that team which already exist in the Japanese server, so that when in the future when a new character get released, you are able to immediately adapt it onto your team. So that's going to be super helpful for the Japanese players. But for the global player, this is also going to be very useful because I will be going through all of the teams that we have ever seen in the history, and that's going to be. In the end, I'll pick just the top 5 because I think normally even for like PvP or PvE, like 5 teams is normally all you need. So I'm not going to talk about anymore. However, because I am going to talk about the history of all of the teams, there will be certain teams in the middle that eventually doesn't make it to the top 5, and that is still going to be important for you guys because it's unlikely that you're going to have all of the characters in the game, and so you may not actually be able to make all 5 of the teams that I'm going to suggest. And therefore, if you are actually missing certain characters or missing certain teams, at least you know what has worked in the past so that you can use them as a budget substitute. So this should be very, very helpful for you guys as well. Now, in terms of the way I'm going to do it, I am going to start off with just one team, and then eventually I'm going to add in more team and more team as new character get introduced. I am going to start off from where the Japanese server is right now, and now I'm going to talk all the way through to where the global overseas server is currently at. So that's going to be for the EU server and also for the US American servers. Now let's start off with where the Japanese server is right now, and it's very obvious what's the strongest team in the Japanese server right now. Well, one of the strongest team, let's say. This is the strongest team in the Japanese server for story maps for sure, and that is going to be Sagittarius Seiya, Virgo Shun, Hound Asterion, and also Sirius, Canis Major Sirius. Those are the best characters for a story map mode in your PvE content because in fact, let me actually label it. It might make it easier as I move it up and down later. This is basically the start of what I would like to call a burst team. And the idea behind this team is that you want to kill off the enemy as soon as possible. Before Sagittarius Seiya and Virgo Shun was introduced, there isn't really a meta team in Senseiya. It's normally just you put on your 5 best characters, and they kind of work because they're really good, but they don't really have much synergy with each other. However, when Sagittarius Seiya and Virgo Shun are introduced, they essentially created this concept of a burst team, where you try to take the enemy down as fast as possible, normally within the 10 seconds, and this makes it very nice from 2 aspects. One, it's really good in PvE because normally in PvE you're up against enemy much higher level than you, and normally they can kill you with just like normal attacks or the first skill attack. So normally you will have trouble surviving long enough in PvE in the story mode. So having a burst team where you can finish off the battle in 10 seconds, that's huge advantage for you, and that's kind of what makes this team right now even one of the best team for PvE. For PvP, this is also good, mainly because it's a fairly cheap team to build. Yes, you have 2 golden arrow characters, being Sagittarius and Virgo Shun. However, the reality is you only need Virgo Shun at 9-star or 10-star just to unlock the clothes. The clothes need to be level 30. It needs to be maximum out. Sirius and Hound Asterion, they are first of all Silver Knights, so easy to get. Also, they're support characters, so they don't need to be very high level. So even though this team is gonna be a team of 5 characters, I will talk about who's the 5th one later. But actually, the only one you need to put resources on is just going to be Sagittarius Seiya. So you can literally have a 16-star maxed out Sagittarius Seiya, and then everyone else at 10-star, and this team will still work. So it's very cost effective for PvP perspective. And if the enemy doesn't know a way to counter this team, once again, it's just going to be what's going to happen in the story map. You're going to win the battle in 10 seconds. And there's no way for the enemy to even turn around because they will be dead before they are even able to release their skills. So this is definitely the strongest team in the Japanese server right now. Definitely the strongest in story map and PvE. The second strongest in PvP because there is actually one other team which can counter that, and I'm going to talk about that very shortly. But first of all, let me just finish off who's going to be the fifth member of this team. The first four is definitely going to be there. Those are the core of the burst team for now. The fifth member, there's normally some variations. You can put Leo. What Leo does is that when you actually kill off an enemy, you are going to charge up your attacks a lot quicker. You're going to hit a lot quicker, and therefore allow you to use the second hit from Sagittarius a lot quicker. So that's normally a good hit, good choice. Taurus Aldebaran also works in this team because Taurus Aldebaran focus on the enemy with the lowest HP and bounce back the damage, and that basically can ensure the burst attack from Sagittarius is guaranteed to kill someone off. This is more popular in guild battle, where even if you're not able to beat the enemy, at least you can make sure you are able to take down at least one enemy down, so therefore you only lose 2 stars rather than lose all 3 stars. I mean, there's a way to counter that, which is using the Ferocious as Fire, Araya Shiki, Sagittarius Seiya, but this is definitely a lot more popular in guild battles. Or the best of, oh, you can also put Sagittarius Iorus. This is also very good because basically what happens is you have an AoE attack from Sagittarius Seiya, and then for any enemy who's too bulky and not being one-shotted by Sagittarius Seiya, you kill that off with a single target attack from Sagittarius Iorus. So this is also a very, very good team, but this is obviously more expensive because now you have 3 golden arrow characters. But the best option for the burst team is actually going to be Krishna. Krishna is by far the best teammate for the burst team for both PvE and for PvP. For PvE, it's important because at least it provides enough shield for your whole team to survive long enough for you to actually launch Sagittarius Ultimate. And normally Virgo Shun is going to be quite fragile, especially if you focus all of your resources, all of your golden arrows to summon on Sagittarius Seiya. Virgo Shun tend to be a lot weaker defense, a lot weaker HP, and therefore may be killed off too quickly before Sagittarius is able to do his attack, and therefore you lose out on a lot of the firepower there. So having Krishna can really help your Virgo Shun actually survive. And the other thing this makes Krishna really good is in PvP when you are facing up against other teams, other burst team with also Sagittarius Seiya and also Virgo Shun, Krishna is able to provide a show at the start of the battle, and that essentially provides you protection against the enemy Sagittarius Seiya. So if you do have a mirror matchup between two teams which both have Sagittarius Seiya and Virgo Shun, the one with Krishna or the one with a higher level Krishna is gonna win that battle. It's just as simple as that. Well, obviously, it also depends on how whether your Sagittarius Seiya is higher level. But basically, yeah, Krishna is basically the only way you can protect yourself against an enemy Sagittarius Seiya and Virgo Shun for the burst team. Now, this is obviously, like I said, the best team for story map in PvE right now. And for PvP, this is also very good. However, I did mention this is only the second best team because actually the best team for the Japanese players right now, a lot of people don't realize this because they never paid attention, but it's going to be a poison team based on Aphrodite. And for the poison team, there are going to be 4 main characters that you really want on the poison team right now. And that is going to be uh, let me try to find them. Momentatus, Moses, and also Aris Mu. Hit. Okay. Poison team. This is going to be the number 1 team. This team is going to be the Sagittarius Seiya and Virgo Shun team in PvP. It's not as good in PvE because the way this team works is that you are trying to get Aphrodite to survive long enough so that you are able to inflict poison. And also you need Constellation on Aphrodite to work. So that's kind of why a lot of people don't realize how strong the poison team is right now in the Japanese server. But if you actually have this team, you're going to win against the Sagittarius Seiya Virgo Shun burst team 100% in PvP. And the way it works, like I said, is essentially you are going to get 4 characters all trying to protect Aphrodite. As long as Aphrodite is on the field, Aphrodite is able to poison the enemy passively whenever he's getting hit through his constellation skill. And therefore, as long as you have 4 characters who are able to protect Aphrodite, you are just able to do damage over time on the enemy teams as they hit you, and you're just able to win through that. It's just as simple as that. Now, this team is not going to be as good in story mode, because in story mode, the enemy hits so hard, it's going to be really difficult for Aphrodite to actually survive long enough. So that's kind of why this team is not as good in story mode. However, for PvP, this is actually going to be the best team. And in fact, normally at this stage where you have both of the team available, you should be in a position in the story mode where you kind of need to play 2 teams anyway. So if that's going to be the case, you have to play Aphrodite Poison team in the story mode as well. So at this point in time, I am actually going to move the Poison team above the Burst team, because to me, in story mode, you will need to use both of them. However, in PvP, when you need to choose only one team between the two, Poison team is the one that's going to win. So Poison team over the Burst team for the time being. Now, once again, there are 4 characters right now, and I will kind of talk about the reason why they're all here. I already mentioned Aphrodite is the core of the Poison team. You need Aphrodite on every single Poison team, and he needs to survive. So everyone else on your team is used in order to protect Aphrodite. Tethys is going to protect Aphrodite by linking up with Aphrodite. For this to work, you have to make sure your Aphrodite have the highest power on your whole team. So that you may need to tweak around on your artifacts or on your Araya in order to make sure your Aphrodite have the highest power. But once Aphrodite has the highest power, your Mermaid Tethys is 100% going to link to Aphrodite, and that's going to give Aphrodite, I think, like extra 20% attack or defense stats. And the defense stats is really what you want to make sure Aphrodite survives longer. Attack stats is always also nice because it means your poison hurts more, but Mermaid Tethys is a very, very much needed in order to make your Aphrodite as strong as possible. Then you have Moses. Moses, once again, is there to protect your whole team. Moses is one of the key reasons why the Poison team completely wins against the Burst team, because Moses is able to offer 40% damage reduction for the first 8 seconds, and that's essentially when the enemy Sagittarius is going to hit with their ultimate, and therefore Moses just make sure you take 40% less damage from the Burst team completely. And also, for the time being, if you don't have Krishna, you can also use Moses as a budget as a substitute. It doesn't work as nice as Krishna because Krishna also provides buff to Seiya, allow Seiya to do more damage. And the other thing is also you actually have a really nice fire and earth elemental like formation bonus here, rather than Moses, which then means you have like 3 earth, 1 water, 1 fire. So you do get more with Krishna. The other thing you have to bear in mind is for Moses to work, you need to have once again constellation skills, minimum the first level of constellation skill, so that you're able to protect the front row, because you will be placing Aphrodite on the front row in order for his constellation skill to poison the enemy who attack into him. So that's kind of basically the way you want to play Aphrodite's poison team. And Mu is just the best healer in the game. Normally it links up very nicely with Moses as well, because normally what happens is Moses is gonna do damage reduction with his opening skill for the first 8 seconds. Mu normally put on his crystal wall about 6 or 7 seconds into the battle. So as soon as the damage reduction from Moses is finished, you then have Mu's crystal wall, which is another 50% damage reduction. So essentially you get damage reductions throughout. And once you survive long enough in the battle for at least 10, 12 seconds, the poison damage is already so high that you don't really need any more sustain, because Aphrodite actually heals the whole team from the poison on the enemies, so therefore you are then able to self-sustain yourself throughout. So this is basically what makes the poison team so strong, and these 4 characters, to me, they are the must-have on the poison team. As for the 5th character, it's kind of up to you. A lot of people play different things. You can put Hound Steering for another healer if you want. Some people used to play Camus as well. Camus kind of frees off the enemy, so once again making sure your Aphrodite survive for long enough. Although I do feel like it kind of overlap with Moses damage reduction, so Camus is probably not the best choice. Some people also do it with Sagittarius Seiya if you only have to make it with one single team, because Sagittarius Seiya is able to knock down off the enemy, weaken their defense, allow your poison to hit harder, so that's okay as well. You can also play it with uh, Casa. Casa is also not a bad choice because Casa works really well with Aphrodite. Casa is able to make sure you survive for at least 1 second when Aphrodite is about to die. Now, 1 second doesn't seem to be very long. However, you do have to remember Aphrodite heal every single second with the poison he's able to inflict. So even that 1 second, it's gonna give you enough time for you to heal back a bit of HP and therefore maybe survive a bit longer. So Casa is also going to be a very good team for the poison team. In fact, he is probably the best option for the poison team right now if you do have to pick out of everyone out there. But there are a lot of options. Oh, you can also play Death Mask if you want. Um, Death Mask. Death Mask also kind of works here. First of all, you get that kind of nice elemental team formation bonus with 4 water and 1 fire. Death Mask also slow down the enemy Cosmo, and therefore, if the enemy charge up, release their skill quicker, in some sense, that also means your Aphrodite gets survived quicker. And also, normally with the poison damage from Aphrodite, it's very easy for you to kill off an enemy. And if that's the case, your Death Mask would then immediately be able to charge up his Cosmo and then release his ultimate attack. So that's also a very strong team. But yeah, honestly, the core is kind of those four. Whoever you put there is kind of completely up to you. There are loads of different options. Okay, so at this point, these are probably going to be the two strongest team in the Japanese server right now. However, another character who I believe just being added to the Japanese server, and that's gonna essentially create a third team that you're gonna see, which is very strong, and that is gonna be the freeze team, and that is because of the introduction of Hip Golden Swan Hugo. And obviously, the other members of the freeze team is going to be Camus and also Aquarius Hugo. This is the freeze team. And freeze team right now, I think, is probably the best. I'll put the freeze team as the best. Oops. I think the freeze team is going to be the poison team right now. Um, for a few reasons. One, in PvE, this is hands down the best team you're going to see. I did talk about Sagittarius Seiya and Virgo Shun being one of the best PvE team for story map, but eventually this team is gonna fall off. Like I still use it, right? It's still one of my 4 teams that I use for story modes. However, it's probably my weakest team out of 4. However, freeze team is normally my second strongest team. Well, sometimes even my strongest team out of all my PvE story modes. So freeze team is definitely the best PvE team you are gonna see in this game. Like freeze team is gonna be at the top for a very very long time in PvE. For PvP, however, it's a bit of a rock, paper, scissors situation between freeze team, poison team, and burst team. And the idea, the reason behind this is because poison team beats the burst team completely. It's just as simple as that. Freeze team beats the poison team because poison team doesn't really have any way of countering the freeze team, especially because normally the way you play freeze team is actually having Moses. Now this is the best freeze team right now for PvP. So don't just think of Moses only for poison. Moses is also going to be needed for the freeze team because if you don't have Moses in the freeze team, the burst team of Sagittarius Seiya will just kill off the freeze team very soon. I mean, you do have Golden Claw Swan. Hugo, if you have his constellation maxed out, you are able to survive for a tiny bit against the bursting. But normally that's not enough, and you do need like a healer and also bit of like opening protection. So that's kind of why Moses is very much needed. And the nice thing is Moses also neutralize poison, so Moses kind of counters the poison team by itself as well. So if we actually talk about the freeze team right now, I would say this is the best freeze team for PvE. All you need is those 3 to be honest. Like for front row, you can put whoever you want. The most classic choice is going to be Sirius, because Sirius give Cosmo to your whole team, and that allows you to freeze the enemy a lot quicker. And basically, what the freeze team can do is that you can do back-to-back freezing of the enemy without taking any damage. In fact, I'll have a video on my channel. I forgot to mention it, but I have a video on my channel for both the burst team and also the freeze team. So if you're interested to find out exactly how the team works, then just check out my videos on my channel. I'll probably link in my description below as well if you do want to take a look at them. But yeah, basically this freeze team is going to be very strong in PvE by having kind of like Sirius and Moses. And this team, for PvP, I'll probably do something like this, or maybe this as well for PvP, and this team would then be able to win against both the Poison team and the Burst team as well. So this is actually the Freeze team is actually gonna be the best team in the Japanese server right now. If I understood correctly, you guys are just getting this Astro Hyuga. So 100% get him. He is going to be very, very strong. And once you do have him, this is going to be the best team for the Japanese server. The only problem with this team is that it's very expensive to build. You need maxed out clothes on all of the. Oh well, actually, you need maxed out clothes and constellation on Kravis Hyuga. Canvas need at least 20 clothes, and Golden Swan Hyuga need at least one constellation skill, and possibly ideally you need both constellation skill, and also ideally you want maxed out clothes. So this is going to be very, very expensive team to build. But if you do have it, trust me, this is going to be the team that you'll be using throughout the entire game, like from now all the way till the end, to where the overseas server is right now. This is definitely one of the best team in the game right now. So yeah, so that's the freeze team. Then what's going to happen is, I believe on the overseas server, a new character would then get released, which created a bit of a hype, but it didn't really make much impact to some extent, and that's going to be Poseidon. Now, Poseidon was a bit interesting. I'll put him right now under good characters because Poseidon doesn't really form a team on himself right now. What happened is some people put Poseidon in here in the burst team instead of Krishna, and that kind of worked, but also kind of didn't, because if you have a Krishna, you are still able to protect yourself against the burst team a lot better. So Poseidon didn't quite fit in there, even though he's quite good. He did kind of work in the poison team. The only thing with this is that when he's in the poison team, Mermaid Thetis is going to link up to Poseidon instead of Aphrodite, and what this is going to happen is that it makes your Aphrodite a bit weaker, and therefore make the poison side not as good. But obviously, you still have the how strong Poseidon is, and maybe Poseidon would now become the main damage dealer instead of Aphrodite. So this does get seen quite a bit, but I would argue this is probably then not a poison team anymore. This is probably more like a Poseidon team. So that's potentially also working. And also Poseidon do work against the freeze team, because if Camus try to actually freeze Poseidon at the start of the battle, what's going to happen is that will be reflected and Camus get frozen as well. So this team, when Poseidon is added to the game, this probably becomes the best PvP team. However, I will still put it one level down than the freeze team, mainly because even though this is very good in PvP and probably the best PvP team at that time, what's going to happen is that this team is not very good in PvE mode, in story mode, like nothing to compare to the freeze team. So as a result, I don't really want to rate that as number one, because I think it's only for PvP, not for PvE. And that's kind of gonna be my review on Poseidon, is that at this point in time, Poseidon is very good, but he lacks enough support character for him to actually carry a team by himself. And that makes him really weird and really awkward, is that he will be an addition to one of the existing really good team. However, he doesn't really justify making that team a lot better, because well, the difference is just not much. And also he doesn't really do well in PvE story mode because he's just too fragile. The biggest problem with Poseidon when he's first released is that he is just too weak. He doesn't have enough supporting character to really make Poseidon strong enough to actually work, and that's going to be one of the biggest issue you're going to see in Poseidon. It's just that he's really strong once you get him to survive long enough, but there's not enough good character to make sure he actually survives long enough yet. Okay, so that's kind of why I'm gonna put Poseidon in just this last line with good characters, but I'm not gonna put him into a team yet. He will be able to have a team by himself later on, but that's not quite the time yet. Um, and then the next meta character that will be introduced into the game, I believe, if I remember correctly. Well, actually, this character was before Poseidon on the overseas version, but it may be different for the Japanese server. And it's gonna be Gemini Cannon. Oh, also, I'm gonna put Gemini Saga here. Gemini Saga is just a very good character, but once again, it doesn't quite work for other teams. It kind of works for the Freeze team. Um, to some extent, because what happens is the freeze team is gonna cut off the enemy HP by sorry, Gemini Sega is gonna cut off the enemy HP by 50%, and then what's gonna happen is that your Across Hyuga is then able to automatically freeze them when their HP is lower than I said 30%, you are then able to automatically freeze them. So that actually makes Gemini Sega a very, very good combination with the freeze team. So this is potentially something you can use. So in fact, let me add that now. But the character that would then be released next and kind of change the meta a lot is going to be Gemini Cannon. And Gemini Cannon is mainly used for the burst team. He is going to make the burst team even stronger. Not enough to beat the freeze team or the poison team, I believe. But it does certainly make the burst team stronger because basically what happens is Gemini Cannon is able to do two things. One, when he dies, he is going to make sure all of the enemies suffer the amount of damage they have already suffered. So essentially double the amount of damage they have already taken. If you have someone who's able to do huge amount of damage up front, for example, Sagittarius Seiya, that basically means you can actually have your Gemini Cannon go on kamikaze mission and just go suicide. And when he dies, he's going to bring a lot more enemy down with him as well. So that by itself is already very good. It also works with his constellation skills if you do have them, because with his constellation skill, he's able to confuse the enemy into attacking each other at the start of battle, and that's once again very good for a bursting because not only now you have yourself doing huge amount of damage through your Sagittarius Seiya, the enemy will also be attacking each other. So therefore, you have even more damage for the first few seconds of the battle. So Gemini Cannon is definitely going to make the Sagittarius Seiya Virgo Shun combo even stronger. So that's kind of why he goes into this burst team and make it really good there. Then the next character I believe that was making an impact on global version was going to be Pandora. Pandora is a really good character. However, at this point in time, she's kind of similar to Poseidon in the sense that she kind of needs to survive long enough to make an impact. Pandora is more for PvE, more for story mode. She can really even though she's a support character, she does a way lot more damage than the assassins, than the warriors, than the skill character in this game. So don't think of Pandora as a healer. Pandora is actually a damage dealer, surprisingly, and she is able to do one of the highest damage in PvE story modes. However, she kind of needs to survive for a bit for that to happen. And unfortunately, at this point in time, there's not enough good character to make sure Pandora actually survive long enough. So that's kind of why Pandora kind of falls into the good character scenario. If you do have to play Pandora at this point, the best combination would be this. It'd be something like Pandora plus Gemini Sega, because basically what happens is Pandora only hit enemies with an damage dealing attack when their HP is the lowest percentage on the field, and normally you can guarantee that with Gemini Sega's meteorite after 14 seconds. So the way you normally try to do in PvE is you try to make sure this team survive enough for 14 seconds. Gemini Sega is then going to release a meteorite. Then Pandora is going to kill off pretty much all of the enemy one by one because all of them have really low HP. Pandora can pretty much just like one shot every single one of them. So that's gonna be what's gonna be a really strong PvE team. However, like I said, the biggest challenge is that it's gonna be difficult to make sure Pandora actually survives long enough until later on. So that's kind of why she kind of falls into a good character. So you can kind of add them here, but it's probably not gonna make a massive change yet. Another benefit, she is able to dispel poison. So she can be used as a poison disposal if you're ever facing up against a poison team in PvP. But once again, you already have other characters such as Moses who are able to do that. So I'm not sure whether you actually want to level up a Pandora just for that yet. So Pandora just gonna stay here for the time being. Then the next character that's gonna make a bit of impact. I think those two characters kind of released at the same time, and they both made massive impact to the game, and that's kind of what I'm gonna bring them all together. And it also kind of bring the force team, which becomes really strong, and that's gonna be Athena got close, and she was also released I think around the same time. In fact, there are quite a few characters I think are released around the same time. I think there's also Papillon Mew, but those two are released around the same time, and I think potentially Hypnos as well. I want to say. Yeah, I think potentially Hypnos as well. I'm gonna keep Hypnos on the good character first because I think the way the order of release was Hypnos first. Actually, I can't remember which one was released first. It all felt like similar time. But basically, this is now going to be the fourth really strong team. And this is what I'm going to call the sleep team. Okay. Um, this team is going to be very, very strong. And it's all about Cosmo control. Because, first of all, when Athena got close came about, it shut down Sagittarius A completely because Athena Goklos essentially does what Moses does, but even better. And because she's a light character, you see her being played a lot more. So Athena Goklos comes first of all become like one of the best character in the game because this goes really well in the freeze team. One of the biggest challenges for freeze team is the freeze team does not have enough protection for the whole team, and also you kind of need a Cosmo to be charged out quickly in order for you to freeze the enemy back to back. Athena Go Close is able to provide both shield for the whole team as well as Cosmo for the whole team. So she immediately is going to make freeze team one of the best team uh, in at the time. However, at the same time, she also killed off Freeze team completely in PvP because what happens is that she's able to bounce back and control effect. And Freeze is a control effect. So as soon as Athena Goklos is added to the game, what you see is that the Freeze team becomes the best team in PvE. This is normally a classical Freeze team, and this is the Freeze team I use right now on the global version on the overseas server. However, for PvP, the introduction of Athena Goklos at that time also killed off Freeze Team in PvP completely. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword for the Freeze Team. It didn't make much impact for the Poison Team other than the fact that now you can delete Moses and make Athena Goklos instead of Moses for the Poison Team, which is a small increase in terms of what they can do, but not like a massive difference. However, it also meant to shut down the Burst Team completely. So Athena Goklos, I would say, is the first character that kind of disrupt the entire meta for PvP at the time when she was released, and she was literally seen everywhere. So I strongly recommend you keep an eye out for Selena Gokos because I imagine she'll do the same thing for the Japanese server. But what this team also allowed you to do is it created something called the Sleep Team, which is essentially this characters. And maybe you add Mu into here as well. But some combination of this six character was very, very strong. And I'll move this to probably, yeah. I think at this point, the burst team completely went down for PvP. It still works in PvE, but I'm going to move it to team 5 or the 5th position just to demonstrate pretty much, say, such as say, have no play in PvP ever again. Like just never comes into play in PvP anymore. Poison teams still kind of work, but not really. And then for the freeze team, I think the freeze team and sleep team is a bit tricky. I think freeze team is definitely much better in PvE in the story mode, but the sleep team is a lot better in PvP because this just get completely shut down by Xena Gokko. So I think on reflection, I'll probably put the sleep team over the freeze team because sleep team can still work in PvE story mode, whereas the freeze team doesn't work at all in PvP. But yeah, this is gonna be kind of the order I put, and the reason why this team, the sleep team, is very good, is because it very much rely on control. And the idea here is that you have Hypnos, you have Mu, who's able to constantly put the enemy under control. You also then have someone like Sorrento, who is able to, as soon as he releases his ultimate, the enemy is then not able to release their ultimate. So you have really strong edge over the enemies. And then with the introduction of Athena God Clothes, what that basically means is that you would be able to make sure your whole team get Cosmo a lot quicker, and therefore constantly putting the enemy into sleep, or in the case of Sorrento, sealing their ultimate skills. And then obviously you have someone like Poseidon who have really strong looping skill to constantly stun the enemy and removing their Cosmo as well. So this basically have a massive Cosmo advantage over the enemy, and it's very difficult to break down because they're all very bulky characters. Apart from Poseidon, all of other characters are really, really difficult to take down. And in terms of average mood at this point, average mood doesn't have to go into here, but if you are lacking, let's say, either mood, Hypnos or Sorrento, normally you would use Arasmu instead to substitute because Arasmu is able to do better control with the blind effect, but more importantly, he's able to give Crystal Wall, which is seriously going to help your Poseidon to survive long enough to fully awaken. So this is basically becoming then the best team in PvP at that time, because you would then be moving Arasmu into the sleep team. Normally what you then happens is that for the poison team, you would, like what I said earlier, you put cancer in here, and normally some people then also put like, for example, Honda steering. So that's potentially what you can do for the poison team. And also around the same time, I think another poison team support was released, which is Niobe. So then this kind of becomes the standard poison team. This becomes the sleep team, this becomes the burst team, but burst team is not really played in PvP anymore. So this is kind of then what happened at that time. It also then also meant the introduction of Athena God Clothes also meant Pandora could work as well, because you would have someone like Athena God Clothes to protect Pandora for long enough, and maybe Ares Moon as well. Athena God Clothes plus Ares Moon, that's a really, really strong combo. Who's able to protect like pretty much any really fragile characters. So you will see them being placed a lot as well. But yeah, that's gonna be kind of how the different teams are shaping up at that point. Then the next character who kind of disrupts things is gonna be, I think Seiya Goku is then gonna be here. Yeah, I think Seiya Goku then get added into the game, and Seiya Goku was a very interesting one at that point. Oh, also there's something one else. Thanatos. Where is Thanatos? Thanatos at that point is also in the game before Seiya Goku, but Thanatos didn't really make much impact yet, but he will become pretty strong later on. All right, so I'll just save him for future. Um, but the next character that kind of makes a big impact was Seiya Goku. However, kind of similar to Poseidon was experiencing. Seiya Goku, even though he did a typical team associated with him when he first released. However, he can kind of just go everywhere. He can work in the poison team. Okay, basically what happens is he has an attack which can apply debuff to all of the enemies. So what happens is you put the poison rose, Araya Shiki, on Seiya Goku, and now he's able to poison the entire team and therefore allow your Aphrodite to do even better. So he works there. He also works for the burst team because he does have an opening do with the character. And also if you actually have him dueling someone like Moses or Sina Goku, you can actually break their opening effect in order for your Seiya to actually attack in PvP. So that could also work as well. So Seiya Goku at that point was just a bit weird because you have loads of different versions of Seiya Goku which can kind of make them work. You can also kind of put him in the sleep team, but then it doesn't become sleep team anymore. It just become a team of really good characters because all of the characters on this top row are really strong. So it doesn't really have that sleep aspect anymore, but it just become a really, really good character. So when Seiya Got Close was first released, he kind of fell into this position where he's definitely very strong. Everyone can see him, he's very strong. And he will be in pretty much every single PvP team. But he doesn't really have a team associated with him because he's very versatile. He can literally just go everywhere. It's not even like Poseidon. The problem Poseidon couldn't make a team by himself was because he's a bit too fragile. However, Seiya Goklos is actually bulky enough because he has damage immunity. He is actually strong enough to go on any team without any support. So he kind of just goes into every single team out there, but doesn't really have a typical team associated with him yet. So that's kind of what's gonna happen when Seiya Goklos is first released. However, very soon that's gonna change. Another meta team is now gonna appear, and that is gonna be the this team, which is based on uh, Shuri got close and Seiya got close. And basically, what happens is that you play Seiya got close up front. Shuri got close is going to protect the other front row ally, and it essentially ensures your Seiya got close doesn't die. And Seiya got close is one of the few characters in this game who's capable of killing all 5 enemies by himself. So as long as you can protect Seiya got close throughout the entire battle, which is basically what you're doing with Shuri got close, you can pretty much just make sure that you take out all of the enemy. So this is gonna be another team. I'm gonna call Seiya got close plus Shuri got close. I'm just gonna call it Seiya Shiryu for now. And this is gonna be something you see a lot. And this is also gonna be one of the few scenarios where I have a team with just 2 characters. Because in all honesty, those 2 characters are enough. I mean, obviously you will fill in the other 3 with other characters, so you don't have an empty team. But honestly, whoever you put on the other slots, they will be fine. Normally you want to put like healers, etc., to make sure Seiya doesn't die too quickly. But in all honesty, any other character would do, and this become really strong. And I think at this point, I would say Seiya Shuru is probably going to be the second best team, maybe the better than the sleep team because I think this team works better in the story mode as well. This team is a very strong story and PvP team, so I think this probably becomes then the best team at that point, especially because later on another character get added in, which will also be very strong for a very long time, and that's gonna be Roshidoko. Now, once you have Roshi, who is able to constantly push back the enemies, this becomes very strong, and this just becomes a really strong team. Normally, you put this again with Seiya Shuru, but obviously you can also put him in any other team. He also works in important team because he's from Water faction, right? So he kind of also goes pretty much in a lot of the other position. He can also work in Sleep team because he constantly interrupt the enemy. But normally you see him in the first team with your Seiya Gokuro, and this is then becoming possibly the best team at that point for both PvP and PvE. Normally for PvP, you would probably don't do this and maybe this. Now, this is probably going to be the best PvP team at that point, or maybe you put Poseidon in instead of Arasmu, because Roshi does counter Arasmu. But yeah, so this is probably then become the best team in PvP at that time. But then later on, another very strong character get released, which is going to be Shungo Close. Shungo Close is a very good character who can go everywhere. He is probably the most universal character, the character you need on every single first team for PvP, regardless what's going on elsewhere. And the reason why he is so good is that he's able to dispel buff and also debuff straight away, and that's gonna counter Athena Gold Close completely. So that's kind of why even though Athena Gold Close was very strong, as soon as Sean Gold Close was released, you will see Athena Gold Close go down, and possibly here. Sean Gold Close is also able to dispel poison, so the poison team doesn't do as well as either. So I'll probably do it like this, and this then kind of become the landscape of what's going on at that time. Yeah, Sean Goldclaw is just like one of the best characters in the game, so he is kind of pretty much needed everywhere. Then what happens is Hugo Goldclaw is gonna be added to the game, and Hugo Goldclaw is very interesting because Hugo Goldclaw can naturally going into the freeze team. Although I would argue at this point, the freeze team can actually work. Like this team can work without Hyuga in PvE in story modes anyway, and in PvP because Sean Goku is everywhere. This team wouldn't work. Like any team with a single Goku wouldn't work in PvP anymore. So the freeze team is kind of at this point always only going to be a story map only. However, with the introduction of Hyuga at least kind of make the freeze team doable in PvP. Because at least now it means the freeze cannot be dispelled by Shungoku. So that's kind of why Higagoku was actually still okay. However, the reality is, the freeze team was kind of doing pretty well in story mode. Like the best team in the story mode at this point, and also you're never gonna see it in PvP anyway. So there's even though Higagoku can make this team viable in PvP, it's not something people really go for. So instead, the best team at that point becomes this. And this is normally what you then call kind of the big five or the protagonist team, because essentially you have four of the protagonists with Roshidoku. And this is then becoming a very, very strong team for a while till possibly one of the strongest character in the game ever to be added, and that's going to be Ikigokus. And with Ikigokus, you are now going to add another thing completely. I am going to remove the sleep team. Should I remove the sleep team? No, but I will move the sleep team down and create a new team, I think. Yeah, let me create a new role. And this one is gonna be what I call the zombie team. Let me make this into a different color. I already have purple, blue. Okay, zombie team. Zombie team is all about Ikigokus, and this is immediately going to be the best team, full stop. Now, what makes the zombie team so strong is because Ikigokus doesn't die unless everyone else on the team is already being killed off. So what happens is you get into this really weird, somewhat cheeky team formation building. Is that you just bring in five characters who are really, really hard to be killed off, and that basically works because as long as the other characters are not killed off, your Ikigokus won't be killed off, and that immediately means this team is going to work. And the most obvious option for this is going to be, in fact, let me change the sleep team to control team because it's not so much sleep anymore, it's more about control. A lot of people would use with Ikigokus as Mew. He's really hard to be killed off. People would also use Saga Light in this team as well. You can use Pandora, provided Pandora actually have the her exclusive area to make sure she's immune to death for once. There is obviously Sanatos, who's another unkillable character. There's also gonna be your Leo God Clothes. There's also gonna be your Libashuru. And yeah, basically some combination of this is gonna be a very, very strong team because you are essentially having a team which is pretty difficult to be killed off. Now, is this going to be the strongest team ever? Probably not, because what you can do is actually you can do. Oh, also someone else I forgot, who's a very new character. Where's Suiko? Suiko. Suiko can work in the freeze team, alright, but it also works in the zombie team because he's also hard to be killed off. Um, but what I was saying is that is this the best strongest team ever? Possibly not. Maybe the strongest team ever, you would need to bring Sean Goku into this, maybe Seiya Goku into this, maybe even Roshidoku into this, maybe even Gemini Cannon into this, right? There are ways to make the zombie team even better. However, I am gonna keep them separate because the reality is that a lot of time you need to have multiple teams rather than just one single team. And basically zombie team can work without any of those other OP characters. So why don't you save the really strong character like Sean Goku in a different team, right? So that's kind of the reason why I didn't bring them into this kind of zombie team, but they would make the zombie team even better. But yeah, this team is all about the fact that as long as you don't die, Ikigokus wouldn't die. Ikigoko will just end up killing enemies over and over again, and eventually just win through that. I think the most important ones in this formation is going to be Sanatos and Saga Light, probably in this order, and then maybe Mew, and maybe Leo Iki, Pandora a bit less. Oh, Suiko probably a bit more. Suiko, Mew, Leo Iki. Yeah, I think probably this is the order you probably go. But yeah, like any combination out of those characters would make a really, really strong team, which is pretty much unkillable. And if you're unkillable, you can just literally kill off the enemy over time with all of the resurrection from Ikigoko. So yeah, this is probably what the meta is looking like right now on the global version. Like I said, it's probably not the single best team because there are loads of different combinations you will make, and loads of characters kind of goes into various different ones. Then, for example, I normally put a Athena Goku's in my freeze team, right? And also obviously for the poison team, I can add in other characters like I think it's him, Soulfit. You can add Soulfit into this team as well. Let me see who else are there. Yeah, I think this is pretty much what it's going to be like. But yeah, this is kind of what are all of the strongest team you're going to see on the overseas version, and also if you're playing on the global version, then yeah, this is basically some of the team choices that you can take when you have trouble building your teams of five or whatever. The last bit I'm going to talk about is going to be the labyrinth. I'm just going to lay out some of the uh core component you need for the labyrinth mode. For water, this is what you're going to need for water. Water team is all about poison. I already kind of mentioned in my main section. What you need for the water poison team is pretty much Aphrodite, Moses, and Tetas. As for the other members, you can bring Niobe, you can bring Desmos, you can bring Astro Shuru if you want. It doesn't really matter. Those three are the core. For the wind team, it's all about the freeze team. So once again, those three are the core. Um, as for other characters you may want to bring, it's just two front row characters. Normally you do like Mew, or maybe you do Bayern, Seahorse Bayern. You can even do Libradoko. You can do Misty as well. It doesn't really matter. You just need two front row character, and those three at the back will make sure you are always freezing the enemy. For the fire, normally you want Surplus Shion, you want uh Sagittarius Seiya, and also you want Leo. Leo, so to make sure your Sagittarius Seiya is able to release uh the second ultimate a lot quicker because he gets to attack quicker. But obviously you can also bring in other characters like Sagittarius Aurus, Leo Iki. Agate is normally a really good choice for the front row. And also Mew if you really want to go for like a long sustained battle, that could also work. In fact, let me just add it here. Then for the Earth team, it's where normally those five are the ones you're going to be using all the time. However, if you are facing up against an enemy which has Sagittarius Seiya, then the default is to use Casa. Basically, one of the most difficult part in the Labyrinth, or in the Maze mode, is that when the enemy have a Sagittarius Seiya, because that Sagittarius Seiya is going to pretty much kill off all of your characters straight away in the first few seconds. And so basically what you need is you need an opening protection character for each of the elements so that you can actually get past Sagittarius Seiya. And for water, that's going to be Moses. For wind, that is going to be most of the time it's going to be your Astro Hugo. So that's kind of why he's a must-have. Mew also kind of works because you would just be putting everyone into sleep. So I guess maybe like that. For fire, it's obviously going to be Surplus Shun. Or if you don't have that, you can also use Krishna as like a budget option, but really surplus Shun is kind of what you need. And for us, that's going to be Casa. So that's kind of why normally for us, you'll be using those five, but when there's such a Seiya, then you'll be using Casa instead. Okay, here's a post video edit because I did realize I missed out on a few characters, so I just want to include them on my list as well for completeness. First of all, in the zombie team, you could also have Radamansis if you have his exclusive Araya, which then makes him really bulky and like almost unkillable as well. So Radamansis will go into the zombie team. Then for the control team, I also added in Ophi. Ophi is a very suppressive control character as well, so he definitely goes there. And also on this note, Poseidon doesn't have to be in a control team, by the way. Poseidon can pretty much go into, the Seiya team if you want, go into the burst team if you want, go into the freeze team if you want. It's just that normally Poseidon for the fact he has a really strong looping skill, which can constantly control the enemy. So that's kind of why I just classify him under the control team, but he doesn't have to be there. And then there are a few other characters who I felt they are good, but they don't really go into a specific team, and they are kind of your Sagittarius Aurorus, who is still one of the best single target attacker, to be honest. Then you have Surplus Shion, who is just like a weaker version of a Athena Gokos. So if for whatever reason you kind of need a Athena Gokos and go into multiple teams, and obviously you have one Athena Gokos, you can have a Athena Gokos in one team, then Surplus Shion in another team, for example. So that's potentially something you can do. Then you have Sea Dragon Cannon, more useful PvE in the story modes for you to be able to control one of the enemy and start a battle. So he is going to be a very good choice there. But can work in PvP as well if you are attacking and you know the enemy positioning, which is also kind of the case for the next character, which is Ayakos. Possibly one of the best characters for attacking in PvP because he's like the only real counter to Ikigokos. However, this is only for attacking because you literally need to place him opposite the character you want to remove the passive ability from. So if you're actually defending and you don't know how the enemy is going to bind up, Ayakos is going to be a really bad choice. However, if you're actually attacking, then Ayakos is going to be one of the best characters in the game, and he can pretty much go anywhere as well. Normally, actually, if you are facing up against Ikigokos, because Ikigokos is normally placed up front, you normally try to place Ayakos alongside with Shiryu, so Shiryu can actually protect Ayakos. So that's potentially something you can do. But yeah, another very, very good character, but doesn't really fit a specific team. It's a bit more universal. Then we have two characters who kind of pair up really nicely with the Sinagokos. But if you are doing what I'm doing, which is pairing up a Sinagokos in the freeze team, then you don't need those two. So it's kind of up to you. But first of all, Araya Shaka, the most expensive character in the game. So as a result, not many of you would have it, and I'm probably not going to talk much about him in full depth. But basically, he has really good Will of Fate synergy with Athena Goklos. He also has the ability to remove enemy passive, so making him another one of the few counters to Iki Goklos if you play him right. And then you have Leo Goklos, who's more known for a boss attacker, but he also provides a very interesting way to counter Sean Goklos, because basically what happens is when Sean Goklos removes the buff from an enemy, Sean Goklos will also stun the enemy. However, what Leo Goklos passive is able to do is that whenever he gets controlled, it's going to trigger his trigger skill, which is actually going to remove the control and hit back at the enemy with a counter attack. So what you can do is you do something like, for example, you pair up with Athena Goklos for her shield. The shield will be dispelled by the enemy Sean Goklos, and then therefore inflicting stun on your Leo Goklos. Leo Goklos then remove the stun, get his trigger skill, and then attack back Sean Goklos. And a lot of time you can do a lot of damage just with all of those counter attacks. So that's actually very strong as well. But yeah, so those are kind of the other good characters who doesn't really fit into a specific team, but they are definitely by no means weak characters. You can definitely play them in a lot of the other teams if you are lacking a certain character. But yeah, so this is gonna be my guide on all of the teams you're going to see in Seiya Legend of Justice. It's a super long video. It's probably like an hour in total, but I think I definitely provided every bit of history that you would need so that you know exactly what are the most popular and what are the strongest team in this game. If I have missed out any team that you have seen which are also very strong, then do let me know in the comment section. But I think I have covered most of the meta ones. But yeah, if you do know some other teams, then do let me know. I'm intrigued to see what other good teams are there.